Well, I hate to break up the dance party, but we are so excited to start this conversation. We have been looking forward to this event for a long time, and we are so happy you are here. So welcome to our Board District 7 Community Conversation on Black Educator Diversity, Preparation and Retention Resolution that is coming before the board soon. My name is Emma Watson. I'm the Policy Director for BD7, and I'm going to be kicking it off for us. But first, let's go into a little bit about translation. So I'm going to go off of the English language into the off. So hopefully everyone can hear me. Bienvenidos a todos. Si desea escuchar la presentación en español, haga clic en el símbolo del globo en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Ahí encontrará la opción en español. Go to the next slide. Si no ve el globo, haga clic en la palabra más en la parte inferior de la pantalla y puede elegir la interpretación del idioma. Go to the next slide. Para cambiar su nombre, oprima participantes y luego más y ahí ve la opción para cambiar su nombre. Por favor, escribe SP enfrente de su nombre. Gracias. All right, well, now that we've done that, hopefully you can make sure to get your Zoom translation all set up. We are so excited to get started. We started a little bit in the chat so far, but we want to know who is here in this space with us. So please share your name, pronouns, the organization that you're affiliated with, or your school. Again, my name is Emma Watson. I'm your Policy Director for Board District 7, and my pronouns are she and her. Go to the next slide. And we want to introduce our Board District 7 team. So our BD7 team has a similar background as I do, the light purple. They might have some dark purple. We love the purple at BD7. We have Dee Dee Watts, who'll give a wave, our Chief of Staff. We have Charnel Blevins, our Family and Community Engagement Director. Stephanie Salazar, our Communications Coordinator. Marilyn Alvarez, our Family and Community Engagement Manager. Kimberly Barajas, our Operations Coordinator, and of course we have Board Member Tanya Ortiz Franklin with here tonight. And then we have Davina Ortega, our Coro Fellow as well, to give a wave. She just started with us this week. Super excited to have her.
And Dr. Perry Crouch, your Community Liaison.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Perry Crouch. All right, so tonight we want to share our objectives for what we want to achieve through our community engagement session. So our first objective that we want to do is to build relationships and shared understanding about the importance of growing, supporting, and retaining Black educators in LA Unified. And our objective 2 is to build awareness, collective support, and clear expectations for Board Member Tanya Ortiz Franklin's next resolution, Black Students Excellence through Educator Diversity, Preparation, and Retention. And so how are we going to do that tonight? So we're starting off with welcome and introductions. It's so great to see you all sharing in the chat and here in the space with us. We'll have an opening activity, which we can establish for all of us, our shared experience about why it is important for us to have Black educators in LA Unified and how important they are for our personal educational experience. Then we'll go into a whole group discussion about the resolution and what it does and why it's important. Then we'll break off into small group discussions so you can ask them questions, share your reactions and any thoughts that you might have about the resolution so we can be sure to have your voices as well. And then we'll come back together as a whole group to answer questions and share out our what we discussed in our small group discussion. And then we'll come back together for a closing, share about some opportunities to join the campaign, and then to make sure to get your feedback about the event through our exit ticket. And we want to start off by thinking about meeting norms. So as a board district office, we are committing to bringing these norms to our spaces, and so we want to offer them also up for us as a community. So the first one is to share the airtime, step up and step back. So think mindfully about what space that we are taking up together. Notice if you are talking a lot, can you share the space or encourage others to share their thoughts as well? Embrace both and thinking. So approaching ideas with an open mind and finding the good in different opinions. Notice that we all come from different experiences, backgrounds that shape our opinions and our mindsets. Commit to non-closure. So commit to an ongoing dialogue and a journey of growth together as racial justice advocates. We know it takes time and deep discussion. So we have an hour today, but we are committed to the ongoing conversation for the ongoing need for change. And practice active and deep listening. So really, I know for me, when I'm practicing that active deep listening, it means I'm turning my personal ideas off and I'm really listening to what the other person is saying, not thinking about what I'm going to say. And next, we'll get ready for our opening activity. So we're going to break up into groups of 3 and really set the tone for the conversation on why this is so important. And during your group share, we asked that you answer the question, when was the first time you had a Black educator, teacher, and what impact did that have on your educational experience? So take a moment to think that through, and then the Zoom magic will whisk us away into our groups of 3.
And I just want to name that for some, you might find that you didn't have. And so how that experience impacted you is equally valid for this conversation. And I think Charnel is getting us into our groups. Oh, but not.
Please choose your group. It didn't send you directly.
We can do it in a different way, if that's okay.
You want me to open them?
Yeah, let's do assign automatically. Did you assign automatically?
Yep, and open them. So you have to click yes to go into your room.
Are people seeing the boxes pop up?
No. No. Oh, goodness. But one of my fellow teammates like to redo them. I don't know why. I'm having trouble.
Did it work now?
Okay.
I see some thumbs up. All right.
Wait a minute.
Thank you for the help, teammate.
We were cut off. I know I was really enjoying hearing personal experience with those who are my group. So apologies for those that we cut off, but I hope that you had a nice opportunity to connect with someone and share about your experience. When you first time you had a Black educator, I think for many of us, it was, at least for my personal experience, much too late and should have happened earlier. So we will go into our whole group discussion, getting towards our resolution. But before we do that, we do just want to say a huge thanks and let you all know about one of our partners who has been through us from the very beginning of drafting this resolution and is leading a campaign in support of it, our Diversity and Leadership Institute. Laura and Yasmin, I think, are here with us. So you can raise your hand. We just want to shout you out and prop you up and thank you for your partnership in this. And then I will pass it over to Tanya to share about the resolution.
Thanks, Emma. And yes, thanks Diversity Leadership Institute. I think you'll have a minute at the end to share some advocacy opportunities as well. No pressure, but I would invite you to add in the chat when you had your first Black educator. For me, it was second grade. For my group mates, it was college and graduate school. So perhaps similar to Emma's story of much too late in life. I would be curious if you know the grade level or school level, just so we can get a sense of in the room when it happened for you. And what that might mean for your growth as a scholar, for your family, for your community, and what you know and think about the world. And then I think about the second Black teacher you had, and the third Black teacher you had, and the 10th Black teacher you had, and what a different conversation that might be if it were a white educator or a Latino educator. So there is a lot of reason for bringing this resolution. In part, it's because of the partnerships that we have cultivated and the demands that our community puts on us to do better, not only by Black children in LA Unified, but across our entire district. And for so many of us, it is deeply personal. Thank you for putting in the chat. I'm seeing a lot of upper grades. For me, it is as personal as it is, I imagine, for lots of you on this call. So I don't talk too much about my family, but I am an only child by my blood, mom and dad, but I have 5 stepbrothers. And on the left side is one of them, Andre. He's 10 months younger than me. And our parents married when we were about 2.5. Well, I was 2.5, he was like 1.5. We were really little. So we did basically grow up together every other weekend, but they lived in Redondo Beach for a little while, then in Palos Verdes. And just a couple months ago, I reached out on Charnel from my team's recommendation to ask, Andre, when did you first have a Black teacher? And he said he didn't think he had one. He has a graduate degree and he couldn't remember in elementary, middle, high school, or college ever having a Black teacher and not really having the opportunity to reflect on what that meant for his educational experience. Was an interesting start of a family dialogue. And on the other side of the screen, you'll see another very personal picture for me. Some of you might have seen my swearing in video about a year and a month ago, but it is a team I'm very dedicated to, the Evo family. That's my bestie, Courtney, who's also on this call and a parent leader in Board District 7 and at the school where we met. I also see our principal here from President Avenue, which is where we are standing in this picture. Caleb is swearing me in. This is when he was reading really multisyllabic words as a first grader. He just recently, is, I think, thinking about my brother and Caleb just gets me really excited about the progress that we are going to see in schools in LA Unified. So the reason I put this on here is because Courtney, as a parent leader, and so I would encourage lots of parents and community partners on this call to be the leaders and to make the change that you want to see in your community, because I know she had approached the principal and is serving on her hiring committee to ensure that while she is a parent leader at President Avenue, that there will be many opportunities for Black educators, not only to interview, but to be selected and to serve, to have the privilege of serving her son, Caleb Evo, and her daughter, Landon, who also goes there. So, I wanted to share that with you all because I think for so many of us, this work is professional and personal, and that's important that we stay grounded in the why of pushing our system to do better by all kids, but particularly for our Black students. For too long, so many institutions of power have just oppressed children of color, communities of color, but our Black students in particular in academics, in attendance, in behavior issues. The data is not in their favor. The data has not been in their favor because the system has not been set up with their needs in mind, with their assets in mind, with their community and their families. And part of that is representation. It's not enough, it's not sufficient, but it is absolutely a start. We know that when kids have Black educators, particularly when Black students have Black educators, they are more likely to do better on those indicators of academics and attendance and behavior. But it's not just good for the Black kids in our schools, it's good for all kids to see Black educators, and not just one and not just in college, but throughout their entire educational journey. And that's really important for us in LA Unified to make that an important statement and then act on it and see the data grow because of it. We have invested in LA Unified, again, in collaboration with lots of partners on this call because you've demanded it of us. In Local District West, there's the HEAT program, several schools that have a deeper investment with Dr. McKenna's vision to do better by Black children and families. And in Local District South, there's the Validated Plan. It's how I met my chief of staff through a community partner, Innovate Public Schools. And across the district, we know lots of you have been advocating for the Black Student Achievement Plan, a $90 million investment that we absolutely have to keep growing on to make sure we have the staff, the training, the curriculum, the supports for all of our Black students and families to not only feel welcome in LA Unified, but to really thrive and be prepared for college and career. And, we have a new superintendent coming in. I think it's really important that he knows what is important in Board District 7 and that we continue to fortify not only the investments with the dollars, but the commitments with our words and actions to make sure that we're really seeing the growth that we absolutely know is possible. So we wrote a resolution in collaboration with some community partners, and it is coming before the board on February 8th. You'll see it on the agenda actually this coming Tuesday. Just as a brief introduction, we always like to give our colleagues a heads up to say, we're going to ask you to vote on this and support this. There are 4 resolves, so 4 action steps that this policy is taking. And in a couple of minutes, we're going to break off into small groups and ask you to reflect on what this might mean for your children's experience, what it might mean for LA Unified, what opportunities or growth areas you see, given some of the language I'm going to share now. So the first thing it does is it says we are committed to diversifying, preparing, and retaining our educator workforce with a specific emphasis on Black leaders, Black administrators, and Black teachers. And so part of what we want to do there is, as a board of 7 that approves our big $20 billion budget every year, that we say we have a commitment to this in our actions. Now, we've done this before. We've had several resolutions come before the board and said Black student investment is really important, but it is valuable, I think, for me to say it is important in the area of educator diversity, and that our workforce not only reflects the community, but that we are intentional about growing that diversity and that representation of our Black educators. And yes, feel free to drop questions in the chat here. And if I don't totally understand it, I'm going to come back to it after we do the 4 resolves, because maybe I'll get to some of them too. The second resolve, we have a group in the district that does data analysis. They're called the Independent Analysis Unit, and they report directly to the board. So we give them direction on what kind of data analysis would help us make better policies. So the second resolve is directing the IAU to analyze, prepare, and present a report within 60 days, because it does take a little while to get through all the data we're going to ask them to do, looking at gaps across the district, across communities of schools, and at individual school sites. So what kind of data are we going to ask them to look at? Ooh, sorry about the funny pulling up here. First, the hiring rates of teachers and administrators. At what percentage are we bringing on our Black educators as compared to racial groups across the entire district? How long are they staying? What's the average teacher and principal tenure? Because it's great to bring them in the door, but we want to make sure they stay and feel supported while they're with us. Years of teaching experience in LA Unified or elsewhere, how they are being promoted, if it's similar across racial demographics, or if it's quicker or slower, and then that would cause us to reflect and do some things differently. And this one is going to be maybe a little harder to assess, but I think it's really important, is perceptions of job satisfaction and job support. So sometimes we'll get a great teacher in for just a couple of months because the conditions are so stressful, or the community hasn't been as supportive. And the community, I mean, you know, LA Unified district staff or board policy or whatever we're doing that's making it harder for good folks to stay with us. So we really want to make sure we're getting that qualitative piece as well as the quantitative. So resolve number 1, we make the commitment. Resolve number 2, we do a big data analysis. Resolve number 3 is that our new superintendent takes this data analysis and looks at what we've done so far. We have several resolutions, initiatives, I named a few, but they're a little bit disconnected across the district. Given the data we're looking at for Black educators in particular, what have we done? What can we do to make sure that we are retaining, recruiting, and really preparing Black educators to stay in our schools? Because we know that's going to be better for not only Black students, but like I was saying, for all of our students. So resolve number 3 is really about the superintendent's commitment to doing that after doing some reflection. He will be here in just a couple of weeks. And definitely once this report is done, I will make sure that he acts upon it, which is the 4th resolve, that he makes a strategic plan connecting all of the dots. We have a lot of great intentions and good plans written down, but what we really need is implementation, monitoring, adjusting practice, reflecting to make sure that we have the reflection of representation across our district, and that every child in LA Unified hopefully not just gets one Black educator when they are with us, but several, both women and men, and at several grade levels in their experience in LA Unified, because we know it will be better for their school experience with us and also their career and life preparation beyond us. So I just yacked a lot. I'm gonna pause for a minute. And happy to look in the chat or go back to anything that was on the screen for a couple questions before we go into our small groups. Team, did I miss any in the chat, or does anyone want to come off mute and ask any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
How are we going to create systems where Black educators can be promoted outside of predominantly Black local district areas, for example, LD South or in the Valley? Because if we have a lack of Black leadership in those areas, how is a young Black educator going to be groomed and promoted and mentored when there's a lack of Black leadership in those local district areas?
I'm super glad you asked that question, because you're right. we do have some of this data now, and we've seen in local district West and local district South, there are more Black teachers and administrators, more at the school site level than sort of in the higher ups, local district, and further in the superintendent's cabinet. There is one Black male person, administrator, I think that's his role, in the superintendent's office, but there is definitely an absence of leadership at the sort of top of the top, except for in local district South and local district West, as you mentioned. So, you know, I think part of that is exactly what this resolution is asking us to do across the communities of schools and school sites, to make sure that every school doesn't have just one. Like, for example, I know a teacher who was at a school in Central for a really long time. She was the one Black educator, and she was like, I just don't feel supported by myself. I need to go elsewhere where like I'm with my people. And so I think that's exactly what we have to do, is we have to look across all those different levels and make sure it's not, we're not saying that we're good when there's concentrations in some places and real absence in other places.
Like an SD card.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thanks for the question.
I have a question. One of the things that as African Americans, because I've been a leader for a long time, that our people look for is being competent Black men and Black women that really know the history and that can tell us the history, because our history is about reparation with education. That was all the civil rights movement. The Brown versus Board of Education was for us to get an education, and it's proof in the pudding that when African Americans get education, they do very well. But we've been shut out with racism and everything else for so many years. It turned a lot of our peoples off, even in the school district where they shut down like the metal shops, the wood shops, with the home X, where we were sharecroppers. So we were used to using our hands when we came here from the second migration in the 40s. Because of the defense, that's what got us here. But we were with the red scares and all of these codes, we were flushed into the ghettos, you know. And so with poor quality teaching and people really not expressing our history.
Yeah.
And that has to be really one of the things, because when African Americans who are supported, other African American males and females look to that.
Yeah.
Because I look up to Chanel, I look up to Dr. Watts. My sons and my daughters look up to them because they see them, and they see them being educated, and they see them on a higher level. And that's what our people look for. It's like, well, who's in this position that I want to pattern my life behind?
Yeah.
And when they don't see us, then we got to listen to George Washington never told a lie and all that kind of crap. So, you know, that's.
Dr. Couch, I really appreciate you bringing this up, and that's, you're speaking so deeply to like the purpose of this resolution, right? Like when we see each other in positions of leadership, making influence, you know, working together to make our communities better, it helps kids see what their future could look like. So I appreciate you raising that. And also what I heard a little bit and what you shared gets to this third question that we're gonna break off to, and I see two more hands, but like, are we recognizing the real past historical inequities, the entrenched racism that has caused the situation that we're in? And are we taking the right steps that are really going to prepare the harm that has been done in this country, in this state, and even in LA Unified in particular? So I think that's a really good challenge that you're at least I'm hearing a bit of a challenge in that, to say, are we acknowledging the harm that we've done and making the right steps to repair that through this resolution, through the implementation, through the work we're attempting to do together. So thank you for that challenge. And I do want to hear from Christian and Kenneth, and then we're going to break up into small groups. Christian?
Greetings, everybody. Thank you for having us and hosting this event for the community. So it's two main things I think that comes to mind, questions that come to mind, and potential challenges. One is how does this resolution kind of push the superintendent in particular to engage with the community as he develops his plan, right? How do we ensure that he goes back to the people as you do, right? As you come to us, speak with us, engage. And then the other piece is also, I'm thinking similar to the challenge around the counselors, right? There's this push to hire new counselors, but there's no counselors there, right? How do we ensure that this commitment and dollars we have now can be invested in a way that will either build up the pipeline kind of further down the line, right? And like scholarships and making sure we get Black teachers even going into that field, right? Or yeah, just ensuring the dollars that we have now to invest will still be there if the people aren't there to actually hire right now, right? But yeah, that's it.
No, that's real. We have like a 500 PSW vacancy, our psychiatric social workers. We had this big goal. We're going to bring in all these folks to help support with mental health, and yet they actually do not exist in the state of California. So the state superintendent is investing more in the pipeline for that. So we hope today's scholars will want to come back and work in LA Unified, 6-10 years from now after they get their degrees. And that's important to cultivate that pipeline and make it feel real and important, but also incentivized, like a meaningful salary will come from that, and your benefits and your family and all of that stuff will be taken care of. So I appreciate both the push for the long term, and when we budget for it and those folks aren't available now, what do we do instead? That's a real conundrum we're in. Honestly, we have about 4,000 vacancies every year across LA Unified. That's just typical in terms of turnover. But right now we have 11,000. That's just not teachers. That's all of the positions that we have. But it's one thing to budget for it. It's another thing to actually have the people. So I welcome your feedback on how we can do that. My team is rushing me to get into small groups. So I'm really sorry. We'll go Kenneth real quick, and then Jamika will get you when we come back whole group.
Definitely. I'll try to be brief. One thing that I was thinking about was the community aspect as well. What would it look like, the community aspect, in terms of the data gathering and voice collection, especially as you mentioned, perceptions of job and job satisfaction? And is there also community input in terms of the data gathering, like partnering with community organizations that also are doing data and work on these sorts of issues? And specifically around these issues in terms of like retention and recruitment, what sort of things are we looking for in terms of barriers? Because I know some research has also come out around barriers to credentials and barriers to testing and cultural barriers that may come into place when it comes to Black educators trying to enter the field and then being sort of weeded out because of those cultural barriers.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a tiny teacher residency program, but it does a $20,000 stipend for folks as they're getting their teacher credential, because we know it's a big investment in your academics, but also housing while you're trying to learn and give back. So appreciate the push to work with community partners on that, and to also make sure we're thinking broadly about the resources, right? And broadly about the barriers that need to be overcome, not just the academic professional, but the personal, the holistic piece here as well. And these are the kinds of dialogues that we hope you'll have in small groups. Again, the prompts are really, I was supposed to pass it over to Didi, I think, before small groups, but if it's okay, Didi will rope us in when we come back. But like, what's exciting about this? What resonates? What questions do you have? Or what challenges should we be anticipating as we take this on? We're going to go into small groups. Charnel has us ready to go, and then Didi will facilitate when we come back. Ready to go.
Oh,
Hello.
hello,
Hi.
hello.
And welcome back. I'm sure your group was just as lively as my group. Great information shared, talking about challenges and barriers that exist. And so I would love to hear at least one thing that may have resonated, and I'm going to ask if no one volunteers for the group leader, the group team member from BD7 to just share out something that you heard in your group in the interest of time. And then we'll take any questions, additional questions that you may have. But was there anything that jumped out that you want to make sure gets lifted? I can say for our group, the need for support for Black educators was lifted up several times, to just say that we need to make sure that as this resolution is going forward, that we provide that additional support for Black educators so that they will stay. And I'm not sure if anyone else has anything to add from any of the other groups.
I can share for our group. That definitely came up. Support for our Black educators and our Black staff did come up. Something else that we spent a little bit of time talking about was how really that this is an opportunity to create deep structural changes in the district, and how a lot of these programs seem to be piecemeal. So how do we move away from that, and how do we actually stick with this and make this work? And if it is failing or something's not working right, how do we correct it instead of just saying, let's move on to the next thing? And so I think a lot of that comes with taking the time, doing the research, applying it, and also really, focusing on it. And so, staying the course. So I think that was something else that came up in our group.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate each and every one of you, even though I wasn't in every group. I appreciate your willingness to participate in this process, because it is through your feedback that helps us to present our best, right? So we want to operate in excellence. So I thank you for that. I am going to move along in the interest of time to make sure that we share the important board meeting dates with you. As Tanya mentioned, we are introducing this resolution next Tuesday at the board meeting, and it will be for action on February the 8th. And so we want to make sure that if you are in support of this resolution, that we can count on you to be there and to have your voice heard definitely at our February 8th meeting. Next slide, please.
I'll just say too, maybe because a lot of folks on this call are partners, and I think you all registered through Zoom. So expect a follow-up email from us where we'll send you the link where you can sign up for a public comment. But also if you want to send an email, it's going to come up in a minute. But I'm just going to invite you all to be a part of the follow-up email. We hadn't talked about this team, so sorry. I just think it's a good idea.
It is all good. And so I do want to invite Laura McGowan Robinson up to share, I say up, on the screen to share how you can share your voice.
Thank you, Dr. Watts. I'm so excited about this conversation today, and just thrilled at the engagement and the general excitement about the potential that this brings. And I want to invite you all to support the Black Educator campaign that we have going on at www.supportblackeducators.org. I did not introduce myself. My name is Dr. Laura McGowan, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Diversity and Leadership Institute. We center the needs of Black and Brown leaders as a part of our work, because we believe racial equity among educational leaders is a lever to improve outcomes for all students, particularly students of color. So join the campaign at supportblackeducators.org. Also, we are hosting an action on Tuesday, February 1st from 9 to 10:30 a.m. at Beaudry. When you go to the website, you can get more information about that. And again, as board member Ortiz Franklin encouraged folks to do, get engaged at the board meeting, sign up for public comment. Also email board members at boardmembers@lausd.net. You could also call to leave a message at 213-443-4472. But again, before you leave today, make sure you click and get on that website so you can get more information about the campaign. Follow us on Instagram, share the great information we're sharing about the impact of Black educators in LA Unified and all across our nation.
Thanks, Laura. And I will attest, these things really do work. Like, we notice when we get a lot of emails about the same thing. We notice when we hear folks calling back to back to back saying this is important, pass this. My team takes notes on all these things. The voicemails that are left before, we take note of all of those. So all board offices really do respond to what we're hearing from folks. So thank you for that.
And thank you all for joining us this evening for this important conversation. Thank you for attending. Please, please, please remember to fill out the exit ticket. We use the information to make us better as a team and to make sure that we are listening to what you have said. So please complete the exit ticket. And for those of you who are not connected with BD7, we want to make sure that you do connect. Next slide, please. Connect with BD7. You see all of our information here. We love to hear from you. And so as Tanya shared, email, call, and we're here to hear from you. And then also a way to stay in the know about what's going on in BD7 is to sign up for our newsletters. We have a family newsletter, an educator and staff newsletter, and a community partner newsletter. So there's a bit.ly there for you to sign up for our newsletters and make sure that you are in the know about what's going on in BD7. So in the last few minutes that we have, I just want to thank you so much and let you know that we appreciate you from the bottom of our hearts for joining us this evening for this important conversation. Please, please, please make sure that you complete the exit ticket.
Thanks, team. And we want to be respectful of time. So if you have to hop off right at 6 o'clock, that's why we were saving a couple minutes for exit tickets. But definitely happy to hang around for a few minutes, hear any other questions, comments, no pressure to stay. But really, this is a collective labor of love. And so I want to thank all of our community partners, our parents, our educators, who not only care so deeply about Black student excellence, but also know that we have to take care of the adults who serve our kiddos. And so really investing the time and support in that work is going to be really important and a great opportunity for all of us. So happy to hang around, but also know folks got to get to dinner and kids and all that stuff. Thank you all so much for joining.
And one last board member, Franklin,
Please.
On behalf of Black peoples and Black leaders, we want to thank you and Dr. Watts and Chanel, because when you was on the campaign trail, you said that you was going to make the district more friendlier and more supportive of our needs, and you're doing it. And I just wanted to commend you and Dr. Watts and Chanel. Y'all on fire. And I love working with you. The community love working with you. And when y'all tell us to show up, we there. So I just wanted to tell you, you're doing a great job, man. And I love the team.
Thanks, Dr. Crouch. You know, what you're just saying reminded me, there was a question earlier about Black educators distributed across the district, even in our own board offices. Just like Local District West, Board District 1, and like Local District South, Board District 7 are the only board offices with Black staff members on our team. So thinking about representation across our entire district, you know, something we all have an opportunity to reflect on, regardless of where we exercise leadership. So thank you for exercising your leadership, and to everyone on this team. If there are ways we can support you in your work as it relates to our kids and our families especially, please don't hesitate to let us know. We love working in partnership, so thank you.
Hello, this is Alberta, and I want to thank you guys for getting back with us. I was one of those people that sent you emails on New Year's Eve, and your office got back, and we appreciate it. And we appreciated, you know, having an emergency meeting and dealing with the health concerns of our kids. And, you know, I was just so proud of y'all. Like, I got my acknowledgement email from Tanya. Okay.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Yeah, sometimes we get a lot of emails, especially when there's a big campaign. So hopefully this will be one of those where like we can't respond to all 400. But especially if I know you're a BD7 advocate, I try to write back. So appreciate you, Ms. Moore. I always see you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, no pressure to hang around. You know, if we were in person, we'd like have some snacks. We'd like chat, have some music. Hopefully we'll do those again soon.
I did want to offer another comment. I know I spoke already, but really quickly, I want to just say, like, as a rule of thumb, I like to offer, and whenever trying to do things for Black people, particularly when it comes to institutions, we have to look at actually changing the infrastructure of the institution, like literally changing the rules in which guides the everything, right? So we're talking about bringing in Black educators. What in the hiring processes do we have to change, throw out, waive, make exceptions for to do this, right? That's really what's going to get at it, because the institution itself is what has kind of created these conditions. So just trying to get a new aim with the same tool, you're going to get the same outcomes, right? No matter how good you think you're pointing it, you're going to get this. So I just want to leave with that. And again, appreciate you. I echo all of the sentiments early about the way you've been using your leadership to really drive work for the Black folks and people in general throughout the district. So thank you.
Thanks, Christian. You remind me there's a lot of things that we do because we've always done them. And this is a great time to interrupt that, right? So thank you. Any last comments, questions? People just want to hang out. I love it. It's like an excuse to not go cook dinner, right? Well, thank you. Thank you so much. You all enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll see you soon. We'll send a follow-up with ways to stay plugged in. Appreciate your leadership, whether it's at home, in the school, in the community. Love and appreciate you. Can't wait to see you in person soon in a safe distance. Good night, everyone.